Hello Horror Hounds. Since the last film we looked at was Ken Russell's Gothic, there was only one movie that I really wanted to watch after that. It was another Ken Russell movie, and it was 1980's Altered States, William Hurt's movie debut. William Hurt's an actor that I absolutely adore. I realise that I'm really pushing the boundaries of what is generally considered to be a horror movie. This is very sci-fi heavy. I'd say it sort of veers into sci-fi horror, and as I've said many times before on this channel, my idea of horror is a very, very broad church. And anyway, it gives me a chance to talk about Altered States, which, if if we said that Gothic was batshit crazy, this is the perfect vessel for Ken Russell. In brief, William Hurt plays a scientist called Eddie Jessup, who's interested in alternate states of consciousness, especially amongst schizophrenics who seem to have a common thread of religious auditory and visual hallucinations. He's particularly interested in this because as a child he himself had visions of the saints and of Christ. What he does then is he experiments on himself by seeking out a sort of hallucinogenic mushroom in Mexico, peyote type mushroom, intensely more powerful than peyote though, and the whisper is that everyone who takes it shares a common hallucination. He synthesizes that and ingests it whilst in a sensory deprivation tank to achieve these altered states and heightened states of consciousness. And it's probably easier if I just read the note I made here. This is possibly the best possible vehicle for Ken Russell, allowing him the complete freedom to go hog wild with the hallucinations and long sections of pure cinema, whilst restraining his most excessive impulses within the confines of a narrative that has a specific purpose for every single piece of psychedelia. A script that asks its protagonist to literally travel to the moment of creation and become its existential cry of horror at the realization that there is nothing else beyond that. Really, what more can you want from a director whose whole purpose is to bring us a visual language and to show us things through the language of cinema that we've never seen before? And my God, the hallucination sequences in this movie are to be seen to be believed. I won't even try to describe them for you because this language that I'm speaking to you now is ineffectual. This is pure cinema, the language of the image, and the image counterpointed with other images and the sound that's going on at the same time. Note must be made of the amazing soundtrack, John Corigliano's soundtrack, Oscar nominated, I believe, but all blaring horns and trumpets and really apocalyptic doom type. It's no coincidence. The Book of Revelations, images from the Book of Revelations feature in this, and honestly the score for this is full of blaring trumpets, just like the seals being broken and the trumpets blaring in the Book of Revelations. This is truly cosmic, apocalyptic, mind-blowing stuff. Balancing out Ken Russell's wild and ecstatic visuals, and oftentimes ecstatic in the religious sense of the word, is the script's characters and dialogue, almost to a person. They're pure academics, mostly talking pure academia. In a sense, and I've written here that the dialogue reminds me a little of an awful lot of Aaron Sorkin's dialogue. It's unashamedly intellectual people discussing their subjects passionately. And basically, if you don't follow every single line of thought with them, it doesn't really matter, because you can basically, there's just enough pseudoscience in there for you to just trust that their babble means something, and you follow the reasons why they're all excited about it. I mean, it's all quite ludicrous if you stop and think about it. But if you buy your ticket and go on the ride, one of the things the movie's very, very good at is starting the ride and bringing you along. If you just accept when you watch the movie to just go with it, an awful lot of this stuff will carry you along. An awful lot of it is coal to the fire to get to the next big sequence, but you ride along on the crest of a wave of it. Don't get me wrong, it's not difficult to follow, but a lot of people are talking loudly sometimes and talking over one another. You don't really have to mind about it. All you have to do is trust that these people know what nonsense they're actually talking about and that it means something. Let me give you an idea of this. This is an exchange from the movie, and this is key. This is William Hurt's character Eddie and his wife Emily. So Eddie says, "What dignifies the yogic practices is that the belief system itself is not truly religious. There is no Buddhist God per se. It's the self, the individual mind that contains immortality and the ultimate truth." And she says, "What the hell's not religious about that? You simply replace God with the original self." "Yes, but we've localized it. Now I know where the self is. It's in our own minds. It's a form of human energy. Our atoms are 6 billion years old. We've got 6 billion years of memory in our minds. Memory is energy. It doesn't disappear. There's a physiological pathway to our earlier consciousness. There has to be. And I'm telling you, it's in the goddamn limbic system." Now, it's nonsense. It's all nonsense, but it's glorious nonsense. And trust me, when things, when the experiment, as you will know that they will, when the experiment starts going awry, things become very, very strange indeed. It's kind of like, it's Jekyll and Hyde meets the Stargate portion of 2001. Is one sort of stupid mash-up way I can think of describing it to you. I'm trying to be slightly obtuse in case you haven't seen it. I don't want to give spoilers. There's the Neanderthal scene, and that's all I'll call it. To my mind, it goes on a little bit too long. I think if you're going to start getting tested, you're going to start getting tested there, because it's actually it's showing you a reality rather than what had previously been hallucinatory. It needs to hurdle that fence of a sort of physical reality, but to my mind, actually seeing it play out is much, much less affecting than in the following scene, William Hurt's character explaining how it felt to him. The dialogue explanation of it, weirdly, is more affecting for me than seeing the whole of it play out. Maybe it just goes on a shade too long, a few minutes too long. The opening of that section is purely like something that you would see a decade and a bit later in the X-Files. Abso-frickin-lutely, it's an X-Files episode. There's a little bit of Alien in that sequence as well. Is it Parker? It's when they're going to look for Jonesy the cat anyway. There's a little bit of Alien in there. There's, as I mentioned, there's the Stargate sequence in 2001 is in this film, and supersedes it by a mile. And 2001 is one of my favourite films of all time, and I love Stanley Kubrick as a director. But what Ken Russell does with his sort of altered states of consciousness montages supersedes the Stargate section of 2001 by light years, by absolute light years. There's some Jekyll and Hyde in there as well that I mentioned, and towards the end, if you haven't seen the film before and think this looks familiar, then it was the concept of the the end of the movie was homaged, let's say, in Aha's "Take on Me" video. Uh, so there you go. There's a little bit of Aha in there as well. My girlfriend hated William Hurt's character. I can completely understand why. She was fairly nonplussed about the movie. She thought it was boring. I can kind of understand that. If you're not going to get on board with these people, and they are obnoxious academia types, if you're not going to get on board with them and go with them, it's going to be very difficult to care about what happens to them. But our hero protagonist is, let's not be shy about it. He's self-indulgent. He's self-obsessed. He's selfish to the detriment of his wife and his children. He's arrogant. He's an absentee husband and father. He retreats into academia under the belief that he's doing important work. And personally, I think there's a sly acknowledgement of this. He retreats so far into academia that his research actually involves him immersing himself for hours and hours on end into an isolation tank. I mean, there's the perfect metaphor for him right there. He literally is cutting himself off from all outside stimulus. But yeah, he's a prick. Played brilliantly by William Hurt. What a career that guy would go on to have and is still having. I love William Hurt on screen, and from film one, he walks the tightrope between arrogant, delusional, genius, madman, obsessive. It's a joy to watch, and it's a joy to watch him unravel with it. There are some really big existential themes going on here. It's not the stoner movie of, yo dude, we can just drop some we could take some shrooms and watch this and it's really wild and trippy, like people said with 2001. Yeah, you can do that if you want, sure. But as with 2001, this trippy sort of psychedelia is asking some enormous questions about creation, religious belief, the existential cosmic horror that life, this is all there is, and the only reason it exists is because life and consciousness has insisted itself upon the universe. I mean, these are huge things, and you know, I've seen them dealt with here and in 2001. I'm sorry to keep going back to that. It's the only other film I can think of off the top of my head right now that tries to use the language of cinema in its purest form to talk about ideas of religion, evolution, life, consciousness, and the self. And if you want some of that tied up, bundled up in a quasi retelling of the Jekyll and Hyde story with some fucked up body horror stuff going on and some of the most, if not the most amazing representations of the hallucinatory drug experience that I've ever seen put to film, then I don't know, there's another Transformers movie coming out. You could go and see that.